Welcome back to another episode of Building Enablement, a web series where we talk to enablement professionals and dive deep into the details on programs, trainings, events, initiatives, basically anything that they want to talk about, what they did and how they did it. I'm Stephanie Middaugh, and I am joined today by Ashley Crisostomo. Oh, I messed that up already.
Crisostomo.
Crisostomo. Okay. We literally just said it and it fell out of
I
my
know,
brain.
but I was like, you have a whole paragraph before it, and I know it's not going to stick. So
Awesome. Ashley is currently at Reddit, and she is actually, I met her through Katie Romelier, and we're both WorkRamp users. So I'm actually really excited to kind of chat with her a little bit today. So Ashley, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what you're doing.
Yeah. So my kind of journey to enablement is a little bit weird. I started off in media advertising in New York City at a media agency. So I have a background in marketing, and then I moved out to the Bay Area, did the whole customer success SaaS at a early stage startup thing before coming back to ad sales in the sales capacity at Twitter. And I knew that sales really wasn't in my DNA, but it was the easiest thing I could translate to. Having been a marketer, selling ads to marketers, it was just an easy transition. And then, knew I wanted to try something new. And I saw there was an opening on the Twitter team to get into enablement, particularly around product go-to-market and education. And I figured, why not take the jump, try something new? I really love helping other people. I really liked mentoring new sellers on the team. That I had more of a reward from that than selling. So kind of found my way in enablement only a few years ago. I think probably 3 years ago from now. Since then, I saw an opportunity at Reddit to kind of help build the team. Before me, there's our head of enablement, Nagara Pellegrini. And I met her and I knew I really wanted to work with her and help build this team. And I think, one of the biggest draws was there was no precedent before. There was no LMS. There was no structure. There was no strategy before, obviously, Nagar came on. So I had the opportunity to do the do-over. If I could do something over again, or if I could do something differently a second time around, not all of us have that opportunity. So that's why I came to Reddit to join the enablement team. So when I started, I was the second hire on the enablement team. My primary focus was to scale onboarding and new hire sales orientation and onboarding. There was no program before. We actually just had 2-day session while people were in town getting their HR orientation, and we kind of gave them a preview, in person of the products that we sell, and kind of walked through the narrative and said, good luck, with kind of a spreadsheet of helpful links. I think that's everybody's first version of enablement.
Totally. Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's usually a spreadsheet or a Word doc with just a bunch of links on it.
A bunch of links and have at it, which is, definitely where we started. And so my first initiative was really to kind of gather all of the efforts that were happening in silos around the org, because obviously when we weren't supplying it, each individual team developed their own onboarding. So I did a whole audit of that and, thought to scale. So that was my first project. We kind of set up a rough structure of all that. And then while onboarding our LMS in the same time, since we're a team of 2, I also kind of stretched myself out to our go-to-market efforts for project education for our current sellers. So kind of managing a few programs at the same time while we've been onboarding. So it's been quite a year of building for our enablement team. It's super exciting. We just have a new hire start last week. She's focused on external education. So we're getting there.
Nice. No shortage of projects to work on, hats to wear.
No. Find an enablement team where they're we're just bored. We have no idea what to do.
I don't think that exists. And to your experience kind of leading into enablement, I don't think I've heard the exact same pathway into enablement from any 2 people. So it's very kind of just a open-ended, people just kind of migrate in with different experiences, which is honestly one of my favorite things about it, because then people come with all of these different backgrounds and experiences and angles to view things. So it's great.
Exactly.
Awesome. So I know we had talked about this a little bit in our prep session, but what was the topic that you wanted to kind of highlight on the show today?
Yeah. So one thing that, and it's so funny when I talk about this topic, and I never know, having been a little bit more new to the enablement function, how much of this is like something that everybody knows and how much of this is kind of different or unusual. So I would love to know what you think about it. But one thing that I have been talking about recently is a go-to-market strategy for a learning management system. And I think when I mentioned before, wanting to do a do-over, this topic is definitely one that I wanted to have at least some control over or oversight into, rolling out a learning management system to our learners. So yeah, the reason why, in my previous roles, I either was a learner as a seller and knew a learning management system, and like the kind of joke was like the thing that made us take quizzes, which was kind of an awesome, reputation
Yes.
for an LMS.
Yep.
There was actually literally the first LMS I ever was exposed to literally had no training in it. It was just like a mechanism to give us a quiz. Which is like kind of awful in thinking of it in retrospect. Before that, and after that, I went through a full LMS process, but it was kind of in conjunction with the L&D team and the greater org. So, the sales enablement side of it was very secondary. So while I learned a bunch in that rollout, there were things that I wish I could do differently. So, coming to Reddit, one of the first things I did was RFP around the LMS, and then go through that whole process. And we kind of launched our LMS, kind of how we do go to market. We actually had full marketing around it. We learned a lot, but put a lot of effort into making this a big thing versus just like, hey, here's your new LMS in an email or in Slack. Good luck. It kind of has, varying results.
For sure. And I think I've been at a couple companies that have rolled out an LMS before, and there's always different levels of like strategic kind of whatever it might be. Like some of it is very just like, here you go.
Yeah.
And others is this giant kind of initiative and like rollout, and there's months and months of preparation and planning and everything. So I think this is going to be an interesting topic to kind of dive into, another way that you can like approach an LMS and like how to roll it out and everything. So let's dive in. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Okay. So ultimately, like and there's different reasons that people kind of like choose to go with an LMS, but what problem were you trying to solve by like getting an LMS, like rolling it out to your teams?
Yeah. So the number one is always scale. Before our sales team was about 150, we plan on more than doubling that within this year. We had lofty goals. Obviously 2020 has been a different kind of year for us, but that continues.
Just a little bit. I mean,
just a little bit of a different kind of world, but
a little bit of an event.
International hiring had been a 2020 initiative as well. And while we still had moved forward with that, the hiring piece of it had slowed down. So as we go into 2021, the good news, 2020, we performed really well as a company. So everything that we were doing in 2020 and had been kind of putting on the back burner for caution's sake is actually just moving full force forward, like 2x for 2021. So the reasons why we wanted the LMS is now more than ever super important. And it's really about scale. We are a team of 4 now, but one person is externally facing. So really a team of 3 building an internal training, and to onboard hundreds of people, including international folks across a couple different channels, in the way that we had been doing it before, which was very in-person, very one-to-one, was just not scalable. We also were relying on a ton of sales folks to teach each other, which is good in some capacities, but when it's fully on the responsibility of a peer, you're just taking seller time away from them. So first and foremost, it was about scale. Second is really just about a better learning experience. Early enablement is always ILT. It's always just talking at people for an hour or so and hoping for the best. So measurement, scalability, better learning experiences, different modalities, working in the way our sellers work, was all of the things that we were focusing on.
Makes sense. And so when you were kind of like going through the evaluation process, did you have like a spreadsheet of functionality that you wanted, and like if you did, because I see you like nodding your head, like what were some of the functions that you ultimately kind of like wanted as part of this like do-over from past experiences?
Yeah, so we had and kind of moved forward with a requirements doc, but I don't know if you've had how many requirements documents people have seen or have gone through, but it gets to be very long and very tactical. And I think, I was a part of an LMS RFP process before, but like never really managed that whole stats document. So I've taken templates and seen like, needs single sign-on with Okta access and all of those very tactical things, which we kind of compared and made sure to do those check marks off of. But really, ultimately, what I wanted to think about is like, all right, what is the most involved program that we can ever think about? And is it possible in this LMS? And is it possible easily? Because there's only 3 of us, all of us has to be pretty proficient in this LMS. So what is a good user experience? And I think my limited exposure to like maybe 3 or 4 LMSs, I've just been very overwhelmed with stuff. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of features, which is good and bad. But I think it's been always a roadblocker for me to be able to do things quickly and easily and in a way that our learners understand quickly and easily. So first and foremost, it was to think about this really massive program and think about how it would actually function in a real environment. So yes, we had a requirements document. We interviewed and tried a lot, but really what we wanted to do was sandbox it and actually build kind of a very, very, very strawman version of what we would ultimately want in one of our more involved programs. And it kind of narrowed down our list quite a lot. We required SCORM capabilities, which not all, enablement LMSs really focus on. We required internal, external exposure for an internal LMS, but also one that can be externally focused for lead gen and for our advertiser or clients. It ended up being a wide list that quickly narrowed, and then the sandbox helped us get us to the place where we actually found like a really good fit for us.
Nice. In my experience, when I was kind of like going through the LMS evaluation, it was a good mix of like functionality of the LMS itself, but then usability from a end user perspective. And then for like me as the creator, anybody else who was going to go in and create the content, because to your point, a lot of LMSs just there's just so much stuff. There's so much stuff sitting there. So at the end of the day, if your end user can't easily and intuitively kind of navigate through your LMS system, they're not going to use it. And it is going to become just the place where I take tests. It's not going to go, it's not going to be a place for them to go and be like, you know what, I could really use to like up level my skills or whatever. Let's see what kind of courses we have in there. They won't actively and proactively kind of do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
Makes a lot of sense. So when you were kind of like, we talked a little bit about like your requirements and everything, talked about what you were looking to do kind of ultimately with like the system itself. Did you have to go to your executives to get buy-in to like get the budget for this? Or was it kind of like you came in and they were like, we have budget, let's go and like find an LMS system? How did that kind of work with leadership?
Yeah. So the good news is when I came in, there was an LMS. I won't mention the name of this LMS. Literally zero. Like they had it for a year. I think it was in April. They had it since April of 2019. And it had collected dust because we actually had no enablement team. There was no enablement team until maybe 6-7 months later. And so they bought a tool without really a purpose or a plan or a strategy. So there was money actually on placehold for this thing. And so our timeline for the LMS was actually kind of coinciding with a renewal. So the good news is we had some money set aside. And then with the creation of our team, it was already earmarked for like, all right, we need a thing. We need a hub. We already earmarked there. If we need to expand or if we have more money left over, that's fine. Let's adjust it. But the concept of an LMS was already accepted by the overall sales org. And also kudos to our head of sales enablement. She prioritized it as well. So the large bucket of money that she got, she already knew that she could siphon off for this platform.
Nice. Because you kind of talked a little bit about like your idea behind like the methodology and the rollout of an LMS. Mm-hmm. What were some of the things that you were, when you first kind of like got your hand, like you signed the contract or you got the sandbox instance or whatever.
Yeah.
the first things that you were like, okay, this is what I'm going to go in and like start tackling, or like, what was your thought process around like how you start building, or do you strategize first, or
Yeah.
how did you go into that?
The way we prioritize content, because I think there's a million ways you can start. There's tools, there's processes, there are products that you sell. We had to kind of think 12 steps ahead of where we were and where we wanted to be as efficient as possible, given that we were both authoring the content and creating it. And one of the ways that we at least prioritize the content that we wanted to create first was how often and dual purpose is everything going to be. So at the most basic level, people should know what we sell. So we started with product also because we wanted to invest in the externally facing piece, and the same content it's the same, same coin, different sides, right? We have how to sell it lens, and then like, this is the product for you kind of lens for our external audiences. So we wanted to kill two birds with one stone with authoring content once, or at least having that first to be able to build a foundation on two different programs at the same time. Actually, three different programs at the same time. It's our go-to-market, our products, it's our new hires that need to learn about it, and our clients that need to learn about it as well. So that helped us prioritize the, I guess, initial content that we wanted to build and load up into our LMS for our go-to-market. Beyond that, it was to kind of translate some of our onboarding into what was already authored into that space. So we had a limited amount defined. A lot of it was links, a lot of it was recordings. We've kind of imported that for now. And that's been kind of our straw man onboarding so far in 2020. And, our next 2021 step is to really make it a more robust experience overall. So that was one thing. The content prioritization was one thing to keep in mind. The other thing that we really wanted to do was establish value quickly. So one of the things that I've learned in the past, having had our enablement function be a secondary focus for that LMS rollout, was that we didn't really have a content strategy or really a purpose defined before that LMS went out. That timeline wasn't ours. The requirements doc wasn't fully ours. It was a compromise. So we kind of had to figure out how to fit our programs. My past life, I did figure out how to fit programs into an LMS versus making the LMS work for me. And in my timeline. So the other thing I wanted to do was kind of identify a tent pole or a flagship program that really mattered to everybody in the sales org. So we happened to have our brand new narrative for Reddit come out around the same time, maybe 3 or 4 months after we had signed with WorkRamp. And so we had a little bit of a time period to build a really robust flagship program. And that flagship program was that program that we kind of straw-manned when we were in sandboxing stage. So it involved workshops for everybody. It involved a couple SCORM courses that people had to get through. And it involved that challenge, being able to practice, upload your recording, practice, and get feedback from your manager. So that was kind of the 360-degree multi-formatted program that we wanted to implement. And we had that opportunity with executive support around that Reddit narrative. So we really wanted to anchor it around there because it was easy for us after that to get executive sponsorship for our head of sales to email the entire sales org to go into the LMS and complete something. There's nothing better just to have our entire sales org have to do every single function or every single action they might have to take in an LMS in their first introduction to it. And it's designed really well. So those are the two ways that we started with the content that we launched with or prioritized that stuff.
Makes sense. And I think we did a very similar approach on my side too, was we signed and then we were doing a whole rebrand and remessaging and new demo deck and environment and the whole thing. So if you're able to, when you're rolling out an LMS, if you've got one of these big, meaty kind of initiatives, that is a really great way to really introduce the reps to every single functionality within the LMS instead of kind of just tagging it on here or there. So I think that can be a good approach without it being too heavy at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be challenging to put a lot of work into a lot of content, which we did with product, and then have it kind of be hey guys, here's content, go get it. That is wishful thinking for people to want to self-serve in that way. So yeah, I think it just helps drive everything forward. It also drives the timeline. It drives people getting in there. And yeah, again, executive support. So.
Nice. How did you make sure that the reps were kind of like going in and completing everything? Was it kind of like the carrot and the stick, or was it like did you have to kind of like shame some reps? I know when we rolled ours out, we would like our sales managers were very open to like publicly shaming people in the Slack channel if they hadn't completed their work grant courses. So like I'm interested to hear about like what maybe that approach was for you guys.
Yeah, so part of me, I have my thoughts as to what happened, but I was actually shocked at how everybody completed everything. Like it kind of went out with like a lot of fanfare and a lot of positive reaction, which is like very good. We put a lot of effort into this program, and we were hoping for the best. But I'd say we only had to shame maybe 10% of the folks to complete it in
That's
an
not
order.
bad.
We had a 95% completion rate. The 5% was pat leave. So we had 100% completion. We had a very short list of people that we had to shame, frankly. And I think it really was that we had a multi-tiered approach to making this like really big. We had this new narrative. It was debuted at our sales summit. It was very clearly an org-wide thing. It wasn't just enablement teaching you this new thing. It was like, to your point, like it's kind of a rebrand. It's a way we're talking about ourselves. It was top of mind at our sales summit. Our whole marketing team was behind it. Our sales leader was behind it. And so the first step was them going to a webinar. And it also felt very like inclusive in that way. Like everybody had to go do something. Everybody was talking about it. So it was just very top of mind. By the time they had to do an action on their own, they knew it was coming. So I think one thing that I took away from it was not only with your LMS rollout, but like any program, like that build up to this thing that is super important, you have to invest the time in marketing the build up and as to why it's valuable to them. And that's what I mentioned. Like, what is the value to an LMS and completing training? Attach it to something that is super valuable to like the whole org, and then they'll prioritize it as well. So I think the executive support certainly helped. We never really, we only kind of shamed people one off a little bit, but really just like an email blast to a BC seed list of people to say, hey, remember to complete something from our head of sales, really just lit the fire.
Nice. That's always great to hear. And I think there's always a certain element of like the new shiny tool, like let's check it out and let's see what's going on with it. So you'll always have that. But if you're able to kind of win them over, especially if you create a really thoughtful, impactful, valuable program, it far outweighs any of the other experiences that they've had, because every single rep, no matter like where they've been, even if this is their first sales job, they've always had a really crummy experience with some kind of training software in their life. Like it's always been a thing.
Yep.
So like if you create a really positive experience, no matter what LMS platform that you end up using, that will automatically kind of lower that barrier to entry for them.
Yeah.
Okay, this isn't so bad. I can actually do this.
Yeah, I mean, I can't agree more. It's like really, like we didn't launch with a ton of stuff. We really prioritized very like, for the sake of our own content creation, there was only 2 of us. We could only prioritize so much, but also we wanted to make sure whatever they saw was like very appealing visually. The experience was good. We kind of wanted to give them like, this is a pro experience. Like before we are a newer sales team. Reddit's been around for a while, but the sales org hadn't been around for a while. So they were kind of running like a startup, and, bringing enablement in is like that next phase of a sales org. So we really want to give people that experience. Like, hey, like we are a real sales org. You guys have been selling, but like we are going to sell, and let's like make sure that we have we have your back, we have the budget behind it, we have really the talent behind it, and we expect the same out of you. So, we really care about the way things look, the way people consume that. And we know that reflects on us. And I think that investment, while it seems like, it not as important, actually helped us win like respect, and a seat at the table, and people actually come to our trainings, which is, something that I don't know if I could have said at every single program I've launched in the past.
Makes sense. So one of the things too that I think every enablement professional that I've talked to kind of struggles with is like measuring outcomes, measuring results of something like this. You mentioned that you had 100% completion, like just kind of like in general with the people that were there for that first kind of rollout. How do you kind of like set that moving forward? Is it like a goal that you're trying to achieve, or how do you inevitably kind of measure the outcomes of the LMS like program as a whole, and then maybe the individual initiatives within it?
Yeah, we start with our programs first. So every tentpole program, or so obviously the completion rates is like the basic, but we also score CSATs. We really look at the feedback that we're getting, especially because all of this is new experiences for them. So we really take that to heart. We've been kind of leaning heavily on surveys, leaning heavily on testing. I think that's one thing I didn't mention yet is we did a beta test first. So we really built this with them and with them in mind. So yeah, completion, CSATs, and we actually just have been having conversations about taking those to the next level. So for new hire, we look at time to ramp, which can be time to quota achievement or velocity to that, which we work with our finance and our business marketing team to kind of measure over time, which has been trending in the right direction now that we actually have a program, thank God. And then we're working on anything go to market. So this is inclusive of anything that's product related and narrative related, anything that we're taking to market. We really want to look at, opportunity, win rates, sell-through rates. Also want to look at when we're working on something with marketing, if they do a training, are they using the collateral that we're building? And then how much revenue does that impact? So we're starting to string together everything. And again, that is a big initiative. The building the LMS was big in 2020. Taking the measurement to the next level beyond CSATs and general, sentiment scores is our 2021 goal.
Nice. And then kind of like looking back on your previous experience with LMS systems and like now the one that you've rolled out there at Reddit, did you kind of achieve the outcomes that you were hoping for, like when you were rolling all of this out?
Yeah, I think the things, and then this is totally like how I feel about it, like we have success metrics, which makes us feel good, but I think it's really the comments and the hunger. Like, do we have to yell at people to do something? Like that is like my barometer for success, or are people wanting to actually consume stuff? So I'd say that so far I'm really impressed with the Reddit sales team, frankly, because they are very hungry for this. They really actually are a really wonderful team to work with. They aren't jaded by training. In fact, they probably had been really yearning for it before. So now they're in this mindset where all they want to do is consume, and we want to make sure that the experience that they get while they're in this open-minded headspace is a really good one. So I think we've absolutely achieved that. I think we have so much work to do on building more experiences and building more within the LMS and beyond. So time will tell if everything that we kind of roll out with continues this trend of people being stoked about what we have.
Nice. And ultimately, like looking back, what's something that kind of surprised you, either like on the good or on the bad side of things about kind of rolling this out?
I would say it's been all good. I think one thing that I learned, the head of enablement, she has a really great product background and a really great marketing background. And I think I had always thought like LMSs that you send the email out, you don't really give them that treatment. I think one thing that we really did like kind of like a multi-tiered marketing plan for this whole thing. So yeah, we had executive support, but we also made like little gifts that we put in Slack. We had newsletters around it. And then, while everybody was completing their certifications, we also sent everybody this little notepad and a little sign that said, "Do not disturb learning in progress." So this like a surprise and delight piece of things. And I just think that the appreciation people had for just that little touch at the very end, like, so we've had all these, we've made you do a bunch of stuff. We are giving you a new LMS, and then here's like a little notebook and a little swag for you. I don't think people were expecting that around like an internal tool. And I think it went a really long way for making people feel really excited about something that maybe they wouldn't have been excited before about.
And if there's one thing that we know, it's that salespeople love free swag. So
yeah.
any opportunity that you get to kind of like wrap something free in there with them. The first guide that I rolled out was we had like an intro to work ramp guide, and then we had just a starburst guide where we quite literally used every single functionality that work ramp like has at their disposal to create this guide around like why pink starbursts are the best, basically. And me and my report at the time would kind of go through and monitor when people would complete it, and then I'd go over and like drop some starbursts on their desk, and it was the same thing. It was just this delight kind of a situation. They're like, oh, I got starbursts, which it works when everybody's kind of like in person in office like that. But tacking on this little like surprise to like make learning fun, you can't lose when you take it that way.
Yeah, totally. And it's about them, you know, like I have to remind myself, because I've been caught between cross-functional teams and the sales team. It's not the stick. Like, I'm not here to make sure you did something and you comprehended something and I'll quiz you and then you're done. Or if you don't do it, I'll take away your compensation. That's like not really what the kind of vibe I want to have. I would rather have people be like, this was really helpful. I proactively want to consume this. I want to attend your sessions. I want to complete these things because I know it helps me. So yeah, I think that was another driving factor on, you know, going with WorkRamp as our LMS. It did have that enablement function to do more challenge. I loved the challenges that our LMSs in the past, because they were L&D focused, weren't about getting that sales feed. It was not about sales. So we had LMSs that were more L&D focused, and it was more of like scoring packages and pretty much that's it. Or like, you know, being able to import like third-party training into an LMS. They're like the number one things, which are valuable. It's just not my goal. So I think, you know, making sure that the experience isn't so like I'm the trainer, but your manager is helping you learn, and we're just here to make you grow, is the reputation that I want to have for Reddit enablement overall.
I love it. This has been an awesome kind of overview of the program as a whole. One of the things that I always like to leave people with as kind of like this nugget that they can take away with them is some kind of actionable takeaway that they can maybe take from your experience and then drop into their enablement practice tomorrow if they wanted to. So what's an actionable takeaway that you might think is good for people?
Brand your team. And I mean that like visually, and like really come up with we come up with mission statements, but brand your team and that matters. We really cared about like actual visual branding. We have visual hierarchies. We like think of ourselves as our own like mini Reddit. We're a subreddit within Reddit, you know, like we have our team, we have a visual, reputation that we want to uphold. And I think that people just associate that with officialness and like, you know, authority to some degree, when you actually have some polish. So like, don't put your best foot forward, and don't ignore that, and make sure you think about yourself as you're marketing yourself as well. And it goes a long way in terms of just getting people to do what you need them to do.
I love that. And I think I've talked about this with a couple of other people, kind of building that trust. And it is a mixture between like respect and like this authority kind of figure, but also a friend and like a support system for the sales team. Like there's a really good balance between all of that. To your point that I think is really, really great. This was fantastic. Thank you so much, Ashley, for like being on here and like sharing your story and your experiences.
Of course. Thank you for having me. This was super fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks to our viewers for also watching. And if you or someone that you know in the enablement community would be great to highlight on the show, definitely tag them kind of in the comments below. Make sure to connect with Ashley on LinkedIn. She's also part of the Enablement Squad Slack channel, so you can reach out to her there too. And if you like this video, hit the thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. There's going to be a ton more videos coming your way here soon. And until next time, keep building, everybody.